did South Carolina lose track of nearly $2 billion in taxpayer money? We should soon be one step closer to answering that question. This week, officials are expected to announce the next step in investigating this mystery money. Fox Carolina's investigative team has stayed on top of this story for months now. So in February of this year, the state auditor testified before several lawmakers, and what you're taking a look at is video of that hearing. Well, the auditor said the money was found in an account which was supposed to act as a pass-through between different agencies. The balance should have been zero, but for some reason, nearly $2 billion was there and no one knew where it was supposed to go. Before taking any action on what to do with this money, first they have to figure out who it was meant for. And then back in April, Governor Henry McMaster created a task force to investigate what exactly happened. He gave them a deadline of July 1st, but on July 2nd, the governor's office announced that money was allotted in the state budget to hire an outside accounting firm to do a forensic audit. According to financial experts, a forensic audit is a specialized form of auditing. It focuses on finding anything abnormal or maybe even potential fraud, while a regular audit can be any formal examination of financial accounts. The Great Book debate continues in Greenville County. It was brought up in last night's school board meeting. And one board member says it's not about banning the books per se, it's more about monitoring them and the content that's available for children. School board member Chuck Sailors is calling for a rating system for books that would be similar to, the system that we use for movies and TV shows. Now, he says the request is not about banning books, but allowing parents to monitor the content that their children have access to. Now, if you remember back in October, the debate over LGBTQ books found in children's sections at the Greenville Library sparked heated discussions, some saying the books did not belong in the children's section, while others said they were educational. But this case is related to Greenville County schools, and basically a rating system would help parents deem what is and what is not appropriate for their kids.
Right now, the only thing that we have to go by when we receive those books is a student's reading level and their level of interest. And we want to make sure that those components are eventually in the conversation so our parents and our community can judge what's best for their students to be reading.
So no final decisions were announced. A continuation of the penny sales tax in Greenwood County is now a step closer to being on the ballot come November. County Council approved a second reading of an ordinance that would do just that. The penny tax would be used to fund certain projects that were proposed by the public, including funding for the Greenwood County Detention Center, parks and rec facility improvements, a sewer line project in Ware Shoals, and renovations of the Brewer Auditorium. The third and final reading of the ordinance will take place at Council's next meeting. We now know that 21 students and staff, they came down with a sudden illness in the middle of the day, and here's what we know. So Great Court Owing School is home to both elementary and middle school students, okay? It's located right off Highway 14, and yesterday, more than 20 students and staff, they experienced sudden illness during the school hours. Well, firefighters, they were actually called to investigate the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning, but that was ruled out. Now, we spoke to school district officials this morning, and we're told food was sent out to be tested, and it could take up to a week for those results. We also learned that the food is prepared by the state, and then it's shipped to the school, where it's then prepared for students. But the district tells me not all of the students who got sick ate the cafeteria food. As of today, there were no new reports of illnesses. District officials are saying a possible stomach virus is to blame. We broke the story to you about an hour ago, and since then I have gone through that suit and I have learned it was filed on behalf of one person in Greenville County, and it is giving us the most detailed account of the allegations that we've seen so far. So before we get into those disturbing details, we need to take a look at the man you see right here on your screen. He's the center of these allegations. This is Scott Foster, and he was the owner of the Greenville County-based business. Now, the coroner says he committed suicide in Greenville County last week. Here's just part of the lawsuit. It says, quote, over the course of over a year, So beginning in early 2020, Foster began to take an interest in plaintiff upon her promotion to the top-tier team within Rockstar. And then over the next 6 months, Foster had multiple communications with the plaintiff, primarily through the social media app Snapchat, that included messages of sexual nature, nude pictures of himself, and requests for nude pictures of the plaintiff. Now, the lawsuit goes on to say on at least 10 occasions, Foster persuaded the victim in performing various sex acts with him. These acts occurred, quote, at Foster's home, in Foster's vehicle, Rockstar facility, at hotels during competitions, and in both South Carolina and Florida. The lawsuit says the victims suffer from extensive pain of mind, body, and shock, as well as emotional distress, loss of enjoyment, and mental anguish. Those are just to name a few of the things that were listed in that suit, but multiple law firms say they are representing other victims. A news conference was held yesterday where attorneys say Foster supplied their clients who were cheerleaders with alcohol, abused them. The attorneys did not say exactly how many clients there are, but say they've heard dozens of stories.
This didn't just happen in a vacuum. This was allowed to happen because of power, unbridled power, where these individuals felt comfortable taking advantage of children.
According to the lawsuit, the United States All-Star Federation, Varsity Spirits, and Rockstar, who were all named as defendants, were aware of complaints against Foster both before and during early 2020, and they failed to intervene. The suit also alludes to background checks not being completed thoroughly since Foster was given the green light to coach. The settlement has been reached in a lawsuit between the Smithsonian Museum and Greenville students. The Christian-based legal group representing the students says the settlement is from a lawsuit that was filed last year. The American Center for Law and Justice says the situation actually began when students, parents, and staff from Our Lady of the Rosary Catholic School in Greenville went to the March for Life in D.C. They say after the march, the group visited the Smithsonian, and at the museum, they were told to remove their hats that said Rosary Pro-Life. But group members say they saw others with hats on. When they put their hats back on, they were confronted several times and told to remove their hats because they were, quote, political speech. Eventually, the group was reportedly kicked out by a security guard. Now, the ACLJ says as part of the settlement, the Smithsonian agrees to pay $50,000, provide a private tour for the group led by the National Air and Space Museum director, and have museum officials apologize. Officials at the museum have also agreed to make sure all security guards in their system understand the correct policy regarding hats and clothing. After the lawsuit was filed, a spokesperson for the museum said asking visitors to remove hats and clothing is not part of their policy or even protocols. And as for the settlement, Smithsonian officials said they have no comments. We are here at Greenwood High School, and a new school year means new goals. And one of those goals is to cut back on classroom distractions. That means cell phones. There's a new policy that you need to know about. So students need to have those cell phones turned off during the school day. They can bring their phones to school, but they won't be able to turn them on until those school hours are over or they have extracurricular activities that they're doing. Now, if your child has a medical emergency, this is something you need to talk to the school about or their teacher, because there is an exception in this policy, so you'll be able to talk to your child during school hours. We spoke with Jonathan Graves. He's a communication director with Greenwood School District 50, and he says we're really getting back to basics.
These kids have always had cell phones, so it's going to be a big adjustment for them, but we would just encourage the parents, encourage the students to work with us through this new policy. It's a learning curve for everybody.
He also told me that the state will be implementing a cell phone policy for schools in South Carolina. That's going to take effect next school year, and if schools don't develop their own cell phone policy, they could lose funding. So this is an issue that schools all across our area are really taking seriously. He also says that the Greenwood District is going to continue to monitor this policy and see how it's working out for students, staff, and parents as well. Reporting, Christy Waite, Fox Carolina News.